Yep. So I really, this is an honor to be the MC. I'm going to be MC for the day, so bear with me. Yeah, so yeah. You know, when you come to the party, man, like you just be ready. They make you, they put you up on center stage. So if you're not ready, you will be ready when they finish with you. All right, so I just want to bring up S.G. Luizi Kachaska. Uhuru.
Yes, Uhuru. 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 Vanguard must lead.
African people must be free.
Vanguard must lead.
African people must be free.
Vanguard must lead.
African people must be free.
One Africa.
One nation.
One Africa.
One nation.
One nation.
One Africa.
One nation.
One Africa.
You know, the African People's, the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party is a special event. For 7 days, we're going to be here. And every day so far has been very special, right? Yes. And today is even special. Yes. And you know why? Today is the birthday of our leadership. People speak about a march in heaven. I say a march in a revolution. It is incredible when I found out we were born the same day. So can we just give a revolutionary happy birthday to Chairman of Martyrs and DC honor before we start? So, and as we said, every day is going to be a day of a victory. So without further ado, I would like to convene the 4th day of the Congress of the African Socialist Party. We are winning! We are winning! We are winning! Uhuru. Comrade Nanayo. And over to you. Yeah.
Uhuru, thank you for that. All right. So now, for a tribute to African martyrs, Alikia Ngoma, Office of the Chair. Uhuru. Where's she at?
Uhuru. Uhuru. All right. Where's timekeeper? Okay. All right. So, the tribute to African martyrs. What makes an African martyr? You sure? Yeah. Okay. Africans who are victim or horizontal, well, let's start with the definition of African martyrs. So according to a dictionary, a martyr is any person who is put to death or endures great suffering on behalf of any belief, principle, or cause. And even using that definition, you know, by white dictionaries, we can see that all African people experience great suffering on behalf of being colonized, regardless of our religious beliefs or disbeliefs, our sexual orientation, education, or occupation. So with that understanding, all Africans who are victim of horizontal or state violence should be raised as martyrs in our community. So on this next slide, we do see, pictures of well-known African martyrs around the world. And, these are our African leaders who have been martyred. We have way more African martyrs that we know by name, understanding what we just read. But every African has the responsibility of organizing other Africans for freedom. Our nation has a history of resistance and revolution. Countless Africans have united and picked up arms against white power as different movements were started by the leaders that will come in the next slide. But over here we are recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who they only teach us half of the king that we should have known, Fred Hampton, Huey P. Newton, and Malcolm X. Next slide. We have Toussaint Louverture, who lived from 1743 to 1803. And one of his quotes was, "I took up arms for the freedom of my color, which France alone proclaimed, but which she has no right to nullify. Our liberty is no longer in her hands, it is in our own. We will defend it or perish." Yes. And just to give a little fact about the last name, Louverture, in French, it means the opening. And he took it on to reference his tactical ability as a military commander to find an opening in the enemy or create an opening in the enemy. And then afterward, other people also used it to say that Louverture opened the door to a better future for his people. His motto during the revolution that took place in Haiti was "Liberté ou la mort," which means liberty or death. And what would have been his Secretary General or his Chief Lieutenant was Jean-Jacques Dessalines. His motto, as was explained previous days, was "Coupe tête, boule caille." Cut off their heads and burn their houses. And something I learned even recently, so like a lot of times when people know that you're an African from Haiti, the first thing they say is "sac passé," and the answer we give is "not boule." But even that goes back, the full sentence is "not boule caille," which means we're burning a house. That was something that was asked amongst each other, during the revolution. So Louverture was a formerly enslaved African who led an African army that defeated the British and the Spanish. Dessalines, who took up leadership after, warning Louverture not to meet with, the French and the English, and he could not, he was captured. Dessalines took up the struggle and led the Africans to victory against the French. And one of Jean-Jacques Dessalines' quote is, "We have dared to be free. Let us be thus by ourselves and for ourselves." Wow. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, 1887 to 1940, which we know his popular slogan, "Africa for Africans, those at home and those abroad." Other quotes that I pulled out from Marcus Garvey: "The black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness." Marcus Garvey established the Universal Negro Improvement Association, also known as the UNIA. The UNIA's membership grew to about 11 million Africans worldwide. In 1920, Garvey and the UNIA held the historic First International Convention of the Negro People of the World in Madison Square Garden. The convention had 25 to 50,000 people in attendance because there were so many people inside and outside that you could not get an accurate amount, but it was definitely up to 50,000 people. Patrice Lumumba, 1925 to 1961. "The day will come when history will speak, but it will not be the history which will be taught in Brussels, Paris, Washington, or the United Nations. Well, Africa will write its own history, yes. And in both North and South, it will be a history of glory and dignity." Patrice Lumumba in 1960 was elected the Prime Minister of Congo on its independence from Belgium. He confronted the King of Belgium and made clear that he represented the interests of the poor and working class in Congo. Many believe that his courageous speech signed his death warrant, because after only a few months in power, Lumumba was kidnapped, tortured, and ultimately assassinated by forces from the UN, England, and Belgium. Thomas Sankara, 1949 to 1987. He is known as, or regarded as, Africa's Che Guevara. He came to power in a popular coup d'etat against the neocolonial government of Upper Volta, which was backed by the French. He renamed the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, which means land of the upright man. His foreign policies were centered on anti-imperialism, rejecting all foreign aid, pushing debt reduction, nationalizing all land mineral wealth, and averting the power and influence of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and the World Bank. He was assassinated by a US-backed coup. Next, we have martyrs who were Africans who were martyred at the hand of white vigilantes, people who are not necessarily directly a part of the state, but are backed by the state and move as the state. We have Sister Nia Wilson, Jordan Davis, Trayvon Martin. We have martyrs who were murdered at Africans who were martyred at the hands of the state, Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, Sandra Bland. We have our courageous African patriots, Mark Essex. Whoa. Micah Xavier Johnson and Gavin Long. Who all three of them liberated the African nation from, the state in their own way. And finally, we, have countless of Africans who are martyred their names go unknown and unmentioned. And that is victims of horizontal violence everywhere, but especially in places like Chicago, to the victims that at the hands of the state in other fashions, such as, the healthcare industry and what is going on still today in Flint. Africans are martyred daily and go unmentioned. This includes the hundreds of Africans affected by the poisonous water in Flint, Michigan, thousands of Africans who are victims of police-backed horizontal violence, and the millions of Africans around the world who face the same exact conditions. So with that, we do want to say long live to all of these martyrs. So when I say their name, we just respond with long live, okay? Long live Toussaint Louverture.
Long live.
Long live Jean-Jacques Dessalines.
Long live.
Long live Marcus Garvey.
Long live.
Long live Patrice Lumumba.
Long live.
Long live Thomas Sankara.
Long live.
Long live Nia Wilson.
Long live.
Long live Jordan Davis.
Long live.
Long live Trayvon Martin.
Long live.
Long live Sandra Bland.
Long live.
Long live Mike Brown.
Long live.
Long live Tamir Rice.
Long live.
And long live all of the African martyrs around the world whose name that we do not know. Long live Uhuru.
Okay, let's put your hands together and give Maestro Nikia Nagoma a wonderful thank you for that excellent presentation on the martyrs, saluting the martyrs. Okay, next we're going to have a little culture, so I'm going to bring to the stage, put your hands together so we can bring to the stage Sir Ervin Wims.
felt like the white guy trying to, you know, somebody dap you up and you reach for their hand. That's exactly how I just felt right now. Like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. You all forgive me. It's been a very, very long morning. I would like to ask the elders for the permission to speak, if it's possible. May I have permission to speak, please? Speak, Pastor. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. I am Sir Ervin James Williams III, and they asked me could I come out and perform for you, Miss Makita, a.k.a. I know it's Sarah B., a.k.a. I'm not going to mention her government name tonight. And she asked me to come out to perform a poem for you all, and that's what I'm going to do. So hopefully you like the poem, and hey, that's it. I always get nervous in spaces. That means I still care about what I do. That make any sense? So I always have to talk myself through the process because I still get nervous. But this poem, I wrote this poem back in, I want to say 2002, so it was 16 years old. And I wrote this poem when they were actually talking about, it was right after 9/11. It was like the 1-year anniversary of 9/11. And they were talking about how, I'm never going to mention the name, so please don't come up and ask me at the end because I don't chop off my nose to spite my face. But they asked this guy who was a dean of African American studies at a very prestigious school. Well, basically, let me rephrase this. So basically, they asked him, what does it mean to be black in America now? Because there were people on television saying we're being treated like black people in America, and now we get, you know, we get harassed at the airports because of 9/11 because I'm a person of color, but I'm not considered black in America. I feel like I'm being treated like a black person. So he actually, the reporter asked him, what does being black stand for in America? And he gave an answer, but he didn't give the answer in which I would have given. So this is where that poem came from, all right? Y'all mind if I get off this? Can y'all hear me? Yeah. All right. Hello! They're recording. Oh, they're recording? Okay. I didn't know you were live streaming. You need my sound. I didn't know that. I'm sorry. So I'm going to shut up now. All right? So I'll do this poem right here. It's called I Stand. Now, I need my hands. I'm a hand talker. I'm that guy to be like, yo, that's me. So this poem is entitled I Stand. You ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. Ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. Ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. Ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. I stand for generations of black men who came to America before me, never had the chance to see an educated, sophisticated brother walking around St. Louis just like me. I stand for generations of black men who came to America before me, but never had the chance to see an educated brother like me. I stand. I stand for civilizations that have been bound in history. I'm sorry, I'm messing up because I'm nervous. I stand for, ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. I stand. I stand for generations of black men who came to America before me, but never had the chance to see an educated brother like me. I stand. I stand for equality and recognition, and even for those slaves who cooked food in that kitchen. I stand. I stand for my mother's mothers and my mother's mother's mothers who bore sisters and brothers and kings and queens who look and act just like me and had wisdom stored upon their difficult spelling names just like me. I stand. I stand for black slaves who had to be bound in chains from their hands to their feet and had the original name of their ancestors dragged through the dirt of their own earth. I stand. I stand for black men who have been beaten, black women who have been raped, black children who have been mutilated, but black children who kept their faith. I stand. I stand for civilizations that have been lost in history books, stolen by crooks, profited by thieves, that hung strange fruit from trees. I stand. I stand for George Washington Carver's inventions and Frederick Douglass's speeches and Harriet Tubman's struggles and Booker T. Washington's hustle. I stand. See, you ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. You ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. You ask me what I stand for and I tell you no lies. I stand for that educated black man with his black plans and his cool walk and his jive talk Negro. I stand. I stand for the feathers and Marcus Garvey's helmet. I say you all don't hear me. I stand for the red, green, and yellow feathers and Marcus Garvey's helmet. So many Hurston, always thirsting, wondering why their eyes are watching God. Langston Hughes writing more just be simple poetry than my man could ever fathom. And Maya Angelou being the true definition of a black, strong, surviving, phenomenal woman. I stand for anti-gang wars and mom and pop stores, and even those nappy-headed Zulu black monkey babies that had to get perms in the 50s that drove us crazy. I stand for give me a 5 on the black hand side, and once you go black, you can never go back. And fried chicken at a family reunion, and even that electroslide and grandma who always get the party started. I stand for Malcolm X's fights and Martin Luther King's dream and the rage of the Black Panthers and Angela Davis' afro in her fist. I stand for black cats, black monkey, black coon, black gorillas, black cracks leaving break your mama's back. Yes, I stand for black love, black power, black nation, but most of all, Miss Reporter, black Jesus. Most of all, Miss Reporter, black Jesus. Most of all, Miss Reporter, black Yahshua. See, you asked me what I stand for and why have I stood so long, because my legs were as long as time, and my back is as wide as the ocean, and my hands were as free as the sky, but yet I stood, and yet I am standing, and I will be standing tomorrow with the tears of mutilated children under my feet, and I will be standing tomorrow with the sweat and blood of my ancestors rolling down my back, and I will be standing tomorrow until I do hear your so-called freedom bells ring. So don't you ask me what I stand for. Don't you ask me why am I standing. Mr. Reporter, I think a better question you need to ask me is, Negro, would you like to have a seat? Thank you.
Uhuru. So, yeah, thank you. I stand for the African People's Socialist Party. I stand for Chairman Amali Yeshitela. I stand for African internationalism. And I stand for freedom in our lifetime. Okay, move the program along. Okay, while we adjusting the mic, I want to bring to the stage President of the. I want to bring to the stage President Kalambai Antoinette for the Impedum report. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Go off the stage. Uhuru. Fist up. Fist up. Uhuru. My name is Kalambai Antoinette, as y'all know, and I am the international president of the International People Democratic Uhuru Movement. And it has been an honor to serve in this capacity for the last, I can't believe it, it's been 4 years. Wow. This is 4 years. The fourth convention, if we would have had one, but we have in the Congress. So 4 years. And so we're going to go back and lay out, and I'm going to start with an overview of EPDM's work. Before I get started, I just wanted to take out like a minute and just really appreciate my leadership, appreciate Chairman Amali Yeshatela for entrusting the international people in my hands to build this organization. I really appreciate instilling the confidence and struggling along the way to build me to be and continuing to build me to be what the people need me to be to build the mass organization. And I just really want to appreciate you for that. And I really just really want to appreciate Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshatela so much, because so much of my report and so much of me organizing and being a leader and how I conduct my meetings and everything have came from the training, the hands-on that you have labored with me, and I really, really appreciate it, comrades, from the deepest of my heart. I appreciate Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshatela as well. And I want to appreciate the whole Central Committee for every, victory, every salute, every criticism was so important, and I united with it, and it was because of the struggles that the NCC make with me and with EPDM to continue to fight the work. And so every victory is our victory, so I just really want to appreciate the NCC. And I just really wanted to take out time and to really appreciate my IEC. I could not do anything without this group of people that deal with everything and fight and do the work. And I just really wanted to, send a special salute and really salute Comrade Fofeed, if you could stand up. Yeah. I just really want to appreciate Comrade Fofeed. This comrade is here on the grounds with me in St. Louis. So she is my go-to person. She's my left hand. She always, arrives to occasion, and I just really want to salute her. And so anybody, this is why EPDM is so important, because it constantly meet people at the door. I remember the first meeting that we had at the library, and Fofeed was like, okay, I'm going to join, but don't put my name on nothing. Don't send me no emails, nothing. And then in secret meetings, because we know no better. We know no better. So after we left the meeting, then Fofeed was like, listen, I'm going to get this 1 year and see how it go. I don't know, And so now we 4 years later. People ask Fofeed all the time, why that girl who could be your daughter telling you what to do? And Fofeed said, that's my leadership. You know what I'm saying? And she said, and I'm going to follow her. And she said, because chairman say she the president, so that's what I follow. And chairman's my chairman, and that's my president. And I just really appreciate Fofeed. So I just wanted to salute you and tell you I appreciate you. Uhuru. And I truly appreciate my whole IEC, and I would like to introduce and appreciate Chiriniso. Chiriniso is the International's secretary, administrative assistant, and wherever we need her to fall in at. She does it all, and I just really appreciate this comrade. She take her post seriously. She love the party, and she fight for the political line, and I appreciate that. Uhuru. And she's located in Houston, Texas. Uhuru. And also I have my outreach coordinator, Ushindi. And I appreciate you, Shindy. I appreciate you, Shindy. I appreciate you, Shindy, always up to the task of overturning contradictions. And you, Shindy, is one of those people that is very techno. And I'm like, you, Shindy, listen, you making too many parts. Just go out and sell the spirit. Tell them to go sell the spirit. It ain't complicated. You know what I'm saying? But I love you, Shindy. And he's like, okay, comrade, you know, you helped me to get all this stuff out of my head. And I just really appreciate you, Shindy. And I really want to appreciate my treasurer, Walia Brooks. Walia Brooks have really brought the IEC through. She would tell her report, but I really want to salute Walia and 4 Feet because they work together hand in hand. Walia being the treasurer from York, right? Jersey, and 4 Feet economic development, and these two roles work hand in hand. And you know, they probably are the most despised when they come in the meeting because they're going to chop up everybody's stuff, you know, because they got to fight for those resources because we understand that economic and political is one. And so I really appreciate them, and Walia be up for the task, and we have accomplished a lot with Walia joining the IEC, so I appreciate Walia. And we have a new role, well, it's new role to the IEC that we really seen that the question of the info and ed to be able to go and put out the political line, the mass line, and is very important. And so this was no small task to take on that is on our IEC, but work very closely with Director Akile, with Agipop, and really, you know, using the party's guideline to really inform our mass work. And so I really want to appreciate my comrade Dexter that is out of Boston, you know. And Dexter have his own style, but he is fighting to be party, and I really appreciate that all the time. Boston, right? Boston, yes. So this is the IEC of EPDM that will be giving reports, and I just really want to appreciate, I had to have her on this stage. She do a lot of incredible work. We appreciate her in St. Louis. She is the local St. Louis president, comrade Maisha Ellison. She told me the other day, nobody know me. I'm like, girl, everybody know you. I told you. I appreciate Maisha, and now she has joined the party. And on the stage with me is a very important person that you must know. And she is going to be given a report of the Keep 28. And this woman here is dynamic. She comes in, she's going to fight for it. She's always solving problems. I appreciate her. She is in the training to be in the party. She's a recruit for the party. We're ready for you whenever you're ready to jump. And this is my comrade, Wanda Uhuru. Uhuru, told y'all, she on fire. She ready this morning, okay? She ready. Okay, so let me go ahead and do what I do so they can do what they do. Okay, so the International People Democratic Uhuru Movement. It's not working, okay. The last 5 years. Okay, so in 2014, Mike Brown was murdered, and Chairman always talk about, you know, how he was in St. Petersburg, Florida, and, you know, what caught his attention is the chants that the Africans in Ferguson, St. Louis, that was saying, you know, kill the police, not hands up, don't shoot. But these warriors, these Africans had took to the streets of Ferguson, and literally it had became, you know, a place, and we only had one common enemy, and the enemy was the police. I had been in situations where I'm not going to incriminate myself, but I will say that I had seen, you know, rivals be in one place and say, listen, it ain't the time for that, and they worked together, and they said that we got one enemy today. And I witnessed this. This is not, you know, what I heard. This is what I seen, and I know that at that time that the state had to start to off people theirself because, you know, horizontal violence was not happening during the resistance. That people say that, you know, they was just tearing up stuff and blah, blah. But no, it was very strategic in Ferguson. Like on West Florissant, it was certain stores that had been, you know, these petty merchants that had not did anything for the community. That was the first stores that were broken into. And it was stores that did not get bruised or touched, like the barber shops and the beauty shops and African stores and people that had been part of the community that nobody touched, nobody threw anything in their store. But that's not the story that anybody want to tell. That's not what they want to talk about. And this is before, this is the, you know, the natural response of Mike Brown's death. This is an appropriate, righteous response of this Africans murdered after the police, like, literally just agitated the people, like literally agitated the people, started calling people monkeys and go in the house and y'all can't stand out of here, when people were just simply telling so many horrific stories about how many other Africans that had been murdered by the Ferguson Police Department. In, you know, we heard this African woman talk about how her son was killed, and he called her and said that he was locked up in Ferguson Police Station, and then they act like they don't have no record of it. And so many of these stories, everybody had one, including myself. And so, you know, this is when the party, you know, chairman came to St. Louis, you know, as still cadre with an agenda, not knowing that, you know, Ferguson is an event, but revolution is a movement, you know, and, you know, coming like, just not like, okay, we just here and we're gonna just protest, but having to what end, that what the people really needed. So that was, you know, okay, I don't hit it, okay. Okay, so chairman came to Ferguson, and this is, this picture right here is the picture that chairman talks about of how he was on the stage, and they literally, he said revolution, and then they like they pushed him off the stage, and I'm talking about it took some restraint and to understand that we had a to what end. Yeah, we could have fought them and took them on, but we was there, chairman was there with an agenda. Chairman was there to win the people, and he knew that like just one little fight with some idiotic people would not be able to do what it is that we came there to do. And so I just, even thinking about that now, just learned so much about like what stance that we have at all times when we have these agitators. But you know, this is Chairman, you see Kobina in the back, because this person here that I know who is, you know, they coming right now, you know, they coming. And so I thought that was an appropriate picture. Uhuru. And so this is the black grand jury. So, you know, Ferguson was happening, and Chairman, you know, EPDM is amazing because it gets you in the work involved, get your hands in, get your hands involved. And so we didn't really know a lot, but we knew that we wanted to get involved. So the party said, we're gonna have a black grand jury. I said, we're gonna have a skit? And he's like, no, we're not gonna have a skit. I didn't get it, you know, I didn't. I was like, okay, look, I think one of my comrades at the time had called a meeting. And she said, listen, now we all gonna get on the phone with chairman and tell him we ain't gonna have the black grand jury, okay? And then she said, now we gotta win you. At the time I was Herdosha. Herdosha, we gotta win you, because you the one to trouble, you know? Now you gotta stand with us, okay? And I was like, okay, I gotta, yeah, there's a lot, I don't know. So chairman got on the phone and he lay out the line and he helped us to understand that this grand jury, he give us some history of the party, of how we had tribunals and how we laid this out, and it's a word that we have to give to the people and help them to be able to see what happened behind closed doors and bring it out to the people and say, this is what a grand jury do, this is what their responsibility is, and show them how Bob McCullough could have got an indictment if he wanted one, and everybody know that. But we had to really be able to take it out of, you know, some place and actually really involve the people in the process process of what happened, and this is what it means to have self-government, and this is what the masses of people needed to be able to see beyond just going to another protest and protest and protest, but actually bring them in to show them how we have no power and how we need power. So the Black grand jury was very successful. It was very important, and Chairman always say, yeah, you had became a lawyer. You know, I was really into it. I was so won by this. I knew that this movement, you know, I wanted to be more involved in the movement after that. We were putting up posters, me, Makeda, and we were out putting up posters with Gaida, and they took our posters down. And Gaida's like, well, we got to put up more. And we was like, we're going to put up more? She's like, yeah, if they don't take them down, we're going to have a put-up party, and we're going to make them work real hard to get these posters down. So I was like, okay. And this was an amazing experience, and I think that, you know, this really was important. And I just wanted to salute Comrade Makeda, that's off to the side. Makeda, myself, and Kofi, we were some of the first people we were the first crew, you know, and we still here. You know, we still here fighting, holding on strong, and it was because of all the work that the party had done. Next slide. And so we had the Black community control of the police. Now this event was the Black is Back event that EPDM participated in on the grounds, in involving, you know, going out and winning different people to come, such as we brought Tony Taylor, which was the mother of Carrie Ball, Von Derek Myers, which is the Sarita Myers, that was the mother of Von Derek Myers. And we also had this African to come and give a testimony about how most people didn't understand of how many people besides Darren Seals that was murdered. It was people coming up missing. It was African women found in vacant buildings that the state had started on Channel 2 having Looters Tuesday, where they invited, you know, just regular white people to watch surveillance of looters and identify them. And actually, this was like a blacklist. If your name got identified, they had a group of white people that was actually targeting these young people, and they were coming up murdered. You know, and it was never laid out. But at that time, we had Uhuru News. What was Sunday? On Sunday, it was. Africa Live. And so Chairman thought it was very important to make sure that people knew what was happening, in the Burningsburg newspaper as well played a very important role in this, because you could not find this information anywhere else, but you can go on our websites and see and hear all this stuff that I'm talking about right now, you know, very on to get the real, true information of what's happening on the grounds. And in the Burningsburg newspaper as well. And that's why the Burningsburg is so important to EPDM and to the work that we do. So then I went from EPDM to the party. I joined the party. I joined the party. The first time I went to St. Petersburg, Florida, I went to a solidarity event, and I had seen a couple of little, you know, white people in the movement, Penny, and I had heard them. I'm thinking it's just like they got about 3 good, you know, white people pay reparations and say that's powerful, you know. And then I went to St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm like, whoa, wow, like this is crazy, you know, like, you know. And at that solidarity event, Chairman had said something that really like penetrated, and he said that I had to learn to hate white people to love myself. And I had all my life, like most Africans, have been taught to despise where we came from. I literally made up whole, like the party have really made me honest. It was, I don't really have taught me how to be honest, because I never was honest. really was never an honest person about where I came from. I made up stories about what happened to my brothers. Well, actually, they didn't die. They was lawyers, and they just moved away and never had time or whatever. And I just couldn't deal with the reality of being a colonized African. And it was, you know, through Chairman's speech at that Solidarity event that really deepened my understanding of why I wasn't honest and why, you know, I despised and hated myself and hated where I came from and things like that. And I love being bad in working class. Yeah. You know. So after I joined the party, at the convention in 2015 in Chicago, I became the president. The international president in 2015, and then this is Chimaranga. He was the president at the time, you know, passing the torch to me, and also this is where we launched Africans Choice Genocide, as you see in the front, which was a very important campaign to EPDM that we did some very incredible, amazing work, and it was just like a training course of just, you know, organizing on steroids. And so at this convention, I just wanted to salute and appreciate the IEC at that time, because this was an amazing group of people that I didn't know how I was going to survive without. And Chimaranga was the advisor of the president, and I just really appreciate Chimaranga. I had some sponsors. I called Chimaranga for everything. Like, his name is so appropriate because he know the manual like verbatim, and I just really appreciate Chimaranga and all that he poured into me. And you know, Director Akile was my membership coordinator at the time at this convention. She was new to the work, and she was over membership, and she did a dynamic job. And Daraja was my secretary. She's not here right now. And so we had an amazing group of people at that time, Uhuru. And so then right after the convention, we went to Justice or Else. And this was a very pathetic and sad thing that happened. It was horrible. But the most powerful thing, and if you look at this picture, it speaks volume, because all these people and no one's there organizing these Africans and helping them to understand why we need what is the else. Like, you know, how are we going to organize and get power? Like, we have no future, like we have nothing. We're dying. Like, it's no time to bring all these people together and then do what? You know, exactly what did we, you know, like what do we do? But it was the Uhuru movement, you know, Chairman, you know, said we gonna go and we organize. Like, so you see African Shore Genocide, you see the Northeast region, you see ANWO, you see Kobina, you see all of us, we out there, we got clipboards, we sold so many spears, and the people like really appreciated us. Like, okay, like, I don't know what he up there talking about, women need to know how to sew, you know, like, this is what he criticizing women because we don't know how to sew and we cooking box food or whatever he's talking about on the stage, you know. And even the families were like so broken, they trying to find us because, you know, like they come all this way for what, you know. And it was so bananas. So this was so important, and it just speaks to like why we have to take up all the space. And even though this was so disgusting, it was so important for us to be there. So African Choice Genocide Winter Encampment Tour. So Chairman, our chairman, man, he got strategy. He got strategy. So chairman, and then he just went with me. I'm like, yes, Chairman, yes, I'll go. And then I'm like, oh, I'm sleeping in the tent outside in the car. Maybe I didn't really think about this. Did we think about this? So we went on a winter encampment tour because we found out that the UN African of experts, I don't know what made them experts, but they were experts of the UN to take testimony from Africans to assess the conditions of African people in the borders of America. And so we laid out a POA and a plan, and we said we're going to take this on and we're going to go everywhere the UN is. And so the first leg was Jackson, Mississippi, that Chimaranga led, and the comrades from Kobina and other comrades had went to testify, and we slept outside in tents because we at the whole thing, we were saying that it's not about the UN. You know, this is about African people, and we wanted to do something extreme by saying that we're going to set shop outside to draw attention from the masses of people to be able to say that genocide had to be a household word, that the African masses, every household, have to speak of genocide and understand that this is genocide that we experience. So we studied, Chairman broke it down. We read, you know, what the word genocide meant, you know, and what they meant by it, and we seen ourselves in this to be able to lay out to the masses of people. And we were, I don't think Jackson was as cold as the other ports, but you know, they might have experienced a little cold. But we went to Chicago. It was freezing, y'all. Like, we were so cold. And only what kept us warm is that we kept reading over and over again African Shores genocide. We kept reading our press statement to ourselves to tell ourselves this is why we out here. Yeah. And we slept outside there in the tent. And then, you know, the Africans, we had people. What we found out is most Africans didn't even know that the UN was coming. So how were y'all really trying to assess the situation, and y'all didn't even go to people's house or do a mail-in or whatever, all these resources that y'all have, y'all didn't do anything to win the masses to come and testify. Right. So y'all strategically found y'all little bootlickers, the same little room of people, always there to be able to sum up or explain our story, get a couple of crumbs to save your cousin. I don't even know if they're saving the cousins. I think they're just saving themselves. They're not getting nothing, basically, in this room. But we were there. The poor working class was there, you know, and that was so important that this party, EPDM, is a international organization under the leadership of a revolutionary party that can lay out a political line and an agenda for us to be able to reach the masses, to help them to understand that the working class have to speak for itself. Yes. And so it was so important. Every place we went, we seen that that's what was not happening. And it was so important that we was there. Yes. So, you know, we had the winter encampment. I wanted to say that the UN, in their report, after it was all said, they tried to tell us that we couldn't come to the actual, where they were going to read their findings. And Comrade Yejide was like, oh, well, we gonna get there. You know, yeah, we gonna get there. And so she did some homework, and I don't know how she found out, but she said, okay, we found out where they gonna be. So we said, okay, we gonna go. When we got there, they was like, well, you can't get in. You know, so we was like, we can't get in, so we gonna just do ours right here. We gonna do our, you know, press statement outside in front of where they at and just expose that they won't let us in. But somehow we had got one of our reporters with the media burning spirit to get upstairs. And then they got us upstairs. And so now I'm outside. I've been outside for like a week, stinky and cold. And her nappy and crud in my eyes, I'm sure I was looking really, really working class. And so, of course, they was like, we're going to take one testimony. And they pointed to our reporter because they had not been outside looking cruddy like I did. So they said, oh, okay, she looks nice. Let her ask a question. And she said, you know, we had a, you know, and I was able to ask the question that Chairman told us to ask them. And we simply said, you know, everything that everybody in here have testified and said are symptoms. But the core contradiction that this is genocide. Yes. You know what I'm saying? So, and the bootlickers, I mean, I don't be knowing how Chairman words and African International is so powerful. Like, all of them was like, like they just like turned into monsters. Like, no, how did she get in here? Like they were so mad. Like, she's messing it all up. You know, and so, you know, in their report, they had to address it. Like, they passed, literally, y'all, the board, they was like, they passed it down. They kept having, and one of them just said, You know, we can't answer that, but that is important. So you can go on YouTube because we caught it and we got them passing it down and not being able to say anything. And I'm like, I thought all these people were so smart. And that's why it's so important to bring the masses into the work. Because you just see how dumb these people are. Like, they are really not smart. Like, I was like, really? How did you get your job? Like, seriously? Like, so, and it just really exposes, the more the masses participate in this work and actually go into these rooms and confront these criminals, it really helped us to be able to have confidence in our ability to lead. And so that was so important. So we went, then right after that, like literally after that, we went to Flint, Michigan. So once again, we blazed the code and went to Detroit, Michigan, and we bottled up water, but it was bigger than just going to Flint and giving water. We wanted to take Africans towards genocide. So you see, I didn't have a chance, it was too much, but I really encourage you to go to Africans towards genocide on Facebook and listen to the testimony of all the different residents of Flint, Michigan, really appreciating us, telling us that they had seen organizations come to Flint, but they had never seen somebody to come beyond just some water. They said, but we came and they appreciated us because we said Africans towards genocide. And they was like, that's what this is. Because we felt like we was forgotten, like people just left us, like people didn't care. And they were just coming to take their photos. They said celebrities come, take their photos, jump off water, but nobody's digging and getting to the core contradiction of why this is happening. Why are they poisoning us? Because Flint, Michigan have two Flints. It's a college town. They want to take up the land, and the water crises has to do with the pipes. And so we went to a restaurant on the other side of Flint, Michigan, where they had clean water. Like we all came in the restaurant with bottled water. Like, oh, I guess we're gonna take our chance with the food. But they was like, oh no, we have clean water over here. It's not an issue. That's over there. And and the residents was like, they knew, like they had been getting the letters trying to where people were trying to buy their homes. They said, well, we have nowhere to go. Like we can't just sell our homes. They trying to give us little or nothing. And so they are poisoning Flint's water from the people and the residents. And I believe them when they say that the college want more land and they want to buy their land. And they say that the crime and things like that, and they want them out of Flint, Michigan. And so they're not even making the landlords or the people that own the homes to put the pipes in the ground, or the city, like y'all put the pipes in the ground. So right now, still today, Flint, Michigan is dealing with the lead crisis. And people are even saying that the scientists that coming in to test for the lead, they have a different agenda. Like that agenda is to help white power deepen their understanding, but not ever in the interest of the poor working convention where we launched Uzi. We had our first ever Uzi fashion show, which you see on the other side. And then right here, the convention. So, next slide. And I think this is a video.
Uhuru. Uhuru is a Swahili word that means freedom. And I first and foremost want to offer my condolence to the mother and to every family member of Darren Seals. Today, strangely, is my uncle's funeral too. But right now, which is my brother's oldest, my dad's oldest, youngest brother, only brother. But right now, I'm downstairs at our 25th anniversary convention. Just like Darren, I worked at City Girl, so I knew Darren before Mike Brown was murdered. I met him from coming in City Girl, and he used to get his shoes from me. You know, he wanted to make sure he got his shoes, and he never came and got one shoe. I thought he had kids because he would have a long list of people that he had to get shoes for. And I remember this one particular time, I told her I had his shoes, and I messed up. Wow, it was war. Like I literally had to call all the City Girls, like fight somebody to get that shoe for Darren because he is scary with his little self. And he came back and he apologized. He said, "Sis, you know how I handled that was wrong, but thank you for looking out. You know how I feel about my shoes." I was like, "Hey, I know how you feel about your shoes." But just like Darren, August 9th, my life changed. Because I seen Mike Brown laying in the street like that, and I had got off from work and went to Canfield. And I've been amongst probably everybody that's sitting on this side in the movement, but I really wanted to be clued to something that was gonna solve a problem. Because my mother sat on that parole twice. One of my brothers was killed in 95, the other one died in 97. And then my oldest nephew that was in my custody in 2000 was murdered. And my brother was murdered by horizontal violence, but it don't matter who killed you. It's still the state. Because everything in our community is placed there strategically for a reason. And it's time to unite. But we have to define what unite means. Because we can't unite over anything. Because petty bourgeoisie, certain Negroes only want a couple of jobs or want a check. But we have to unite saying that enough is enough as a people. That's right. We have to have a structure that will keep us safe, that we know when it's time to move to the left or move to the right. So anybody can't come in this and infiltrate. That's why the United States Army is so powerful. Because they don't just give you a gun and tell you to go. Go ahead. They give you the science to understand your enemy. So for us to know our enemy, we have to understand that it's time for us to be part of something that is solid. Darren was looking for that. You know, me and him talked, and you know, I'm sure everybody said he was very opinionated. I was looking through my Facebook and was looking at chats and how he was like, "Man, sis, you genuine, but I don't know about that movement. I don't know about that movement. Everybody is trying to, you know, he had his opinions." But at the end of the day, I knew that Darren had a lot to say, you know, but he, like you said, he gave his life for this movement. We have to understand and get to a place that we don't keep letting this happen to us. So now I'm saying to the movement, get a part of something that is going to stop us from having this, we don't know who did what. And then blaming each other. Well, why she talk? Well, why he? No, listen, sisters and brothers, the task at hand is for us to get free. So I don't care what Bible you preach from or what you doing. I don't care if you pray to rocks or you pray to Muhammad or you pray to Jesus. The bottom line that we Africans and we're dying. And we're dying. It's time. It's time. It's time to unite. My name is, I was known to a lot of people before I heard Peaches at City Girl. And then I went by my real name, Herdosha. Well, I have connected myself to my birthright. Because not only am I fighting for Ferguson, because you might not see me here. People's like, I see you on Facebook, I don't see you here. Because the struggle in Ferguson is California. The struggle in California is New York. The struggle in Ghana, Africa, is the same struggle we're struggling for right now. So we have to understand, we cannot be bamboozled no longer. Like Malcolm X, we learned something. He he thought he could handle his own security that day. So we learned that we got to move differently. The Black Panthers, they infiltrated. A lot of people came in. Martin Luther King, he understood I'm leading my people to a burning building. White people killed them. During SEALs.
Yes.
Okay? Our brother had a powerful message, but he needed a force of army that was organized, that understood when it's time to go to the left, when it's time to go to the right. So if you hurt for your ego, then you're in the wrong thing. But if you hurt because we gotta get free, come and join me. Again, I want to salute this mother. I love you. And I hate that you got to sit there. But let me tell you, Durham will never be forgotten, long as I got breath in my body. And when the...
Okay. Uhuru. And you know, a lot of times we have a spokesperson, president, spokesperson, but this was an organized thing. You know, Secretary General Ghazi and the forces, Kobina, you know, they was organized. They got me up there because I was like, I don't know how we're gonna do this. And you know, they're like, we gotta go. And we went up there, and what they seen is they seen a movement come in. They didn't see one individual come in, but a movement. You know, because you can say some powerful stuff, but if you ain't connected to, you know, organization, you know what I'm saying, that it's going to have a strategic, you know, trajectory of where it's going, you know what I'm saying, we ain't doing anything. We're not doing nothing. So we need organization. And so that was very powerful. So the 3 drowned Black girls happened. You know, the 3 girls were murdered in St. Petersburg, Florida. And Secretary General Ghazi and Akile, we heard about it. We seen it on the news. And we like, we got to find out about this. So we had organized, they had organized and saying, I was there when we heard about it, but I left. And the comrades on the ground, Secretary General Ghazi led that process of finding out about these girls and organizing a protest. And then shortly after, we launched the campaign around the 3 drowned Black girls, which was dynamic. One of the most powerful campaigns that I ever seen, and it was under the leadership of Director Akile that was the chair of that powerful, powerful campaign. I mean, you know, I just seen Akile morph into an amazing, organizer through this campaign of the 3 drowned Black girls. I think it kind of really got her ready for running for office. So that happened. So then Akile organized a dynamic tour that Deputy Chair Office really helped to, you know, pull together, and we went to the Northeast region and Florida. Yeah, right? Yeah, Northeast region. Alabama, yeah. So we went several different places. It was really, really powerful. It was very organized, and we spoke for that, and we raised a lot of resources for the 3 drowned Black girls. And we had a political funeral. This is during the Condre intensive. It was really, really powerful. It was just a really powerful thing where we reenact, and we took the funeral right to their doorsteps, because the state, you know, we always have to go and deal with these things on our own, but we took it right to their doorstep. And we had a political funeral and held them responsible in having this political funeral. And so this was the shutdown. Secretary General Ghazi, we was in St. Petersburg, Florida, and this African woman came and talked to Secretary General Ghazi and told him about this petty merchant that had called her daughter a B word. And, you know, and she was so upset that she didn't even take her daughter to school. Because as a parent, you know what I'm saying, like, that's the worst thing that can happen to you. If you with your child and then somebody try to, I remember that happening to my mother, where the police had pulled her out and roughed her up so bad, and I could see the tears coming down her eyes, that I was there watching and seeing that. And so that's something that, you know, no parent want to have to deal with. And this African mother, she was like, didn't know what to do, and she was driving around. She said, I'm going to the Uhuru house, and I'm going to tell them that's what I'm going to do. And she talked to Secretary General Ghazi. we went upstairs and had a summation with chairman where he really deepened our understanding and helped us understand like how we go in there and what we win this petty merchant to. And you know, we went to the store. It's not a video. It is a video, but I don't have time for that. So in this video, you see how we go. I mean, people thought that we had like made this up because it was just like that. Like we shut the store down. You know what I'm saying? Nobody went in there. The community, we went and knocked on doors, brought people out to tell them what was going on. And then the man, he was like, okay, I'm calling the police. He called the police. And then he was like, oh, hell, shit. I don't know what to do. And he was like, okay, I'll do whatever y'all want me to do. He came out and hugged her and kissed her. I'm sorry. And he told the police, go, just y'all leave. I don't want y'all here. You know, like, get away. So it was really, really, really powerful. And I have seen since then, you know, shutdowns, but just the political analysis that the movement put out is so different than, you know, the theory and the understanding, and not just like, just some crazy stuff to say, but to really understand that, you know, keeping our eyes on our enemy. And not like, okay, the petty merchant is become like, that's the center stage. No, he play a role, and we're going to explain to him what he's doing in our community and how he's not going to do that. But we know who our enemy is, and it don't change. Yeah. So that was really powerful. Uzi custom clothes. So Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshatella laid out Uzi, and she called me and she said, you know, I wanted to lay this out. You know, I know you into fashion and stuff, and she gave us the blueprint, and she laid out everything, the design, the look, and you know what custom clothes is. And Uzi is a Swahili word that means thread, which I used to call a thread of freedom, but we say thread of freedom, but Uzi means thread. I got it right. So we had we just recently had a Uzi fashion show, but we had several in the last 5 years. We had several amazing and very successful Uzi fashion shows where Fofi and Walia go more into, you know, where Uzi is today. Then 2017, we had our convention. Again, we came back to St. Louis, and we had it at Legacy Books and Cafe, and people came. We did a tour. It was an amazing tour where it wasn't even a floor here, and people actually got to come and see this transition of this beautiful, the Black Power Blueprint, which EPDM played a role in, you know, participating in the work days, because we had an interest in making sure that you know, the Black Power Blueprint was successful. This was very important to the development of EPDM, because it is connected to a revolutionary organization and the Black Power Blueprint, and no other organization can say what we can say now. And that's why in the political report Chairman puts out that it's so important that, you know, we are going to take this political report and be just like Deputy Chair and really deepen our understanding and have little hubs. And the first hub is going to be right here on the grounds in St. Louis. And then that will be the blueprint that we keep on take out everywhere we are, to have, like, you know, it might not be like the Aquava Hall, but it's going to be a place where we have signs, our banners, where you can come in and buy Decolonage, you can come in and buy Uzi, you can come in and buy our Burning Spirit newspaper and all of our goods and things like that. And people can have a place where they can go and hang out and be, and where we can talk to the people and have our meetings, etc. So during the convention, right before the convention happened, myself, Chachara, Naila, Renaya, Comrade Maisha, we had, and other forces that I'm not naming, it was other people that went with us. Now, I'm not naming them for no bad reason, I just don't have the names in my head. Okay. Yeah, so we went every single day to the Jason Stockley trial, because we already knew that Jason Stockley wasn't going to jail. But it was important for us to go and sum this up for the people, what they were actually seeing. We wasn't there with our fingers crossed saying, please go to jail, or if they did, like, that was justice either. Like, that's not justice, because until every pig go to jail, until this system is taken down, I don't care who they locked up, they can't sway me with that. You know, But we wanted to go and be able to understand the trial and what happened and how crooked the system is and how the state protects the state. And that's what we've seen firsthand ourselves. And it was just very important for Naila and Renaya to go, because they were like, I can't, you know, like we actually seen with our own eyes of a video of Jason Stockley jumping out of his car with gloves on, with a huge gun that is not even legal to carry, that he brought to work with him on that day. We actually listened to the audio of him in the car saying, I'm about to kill this motherfucker, don't you know it? And less than 3 seconds later, he shot and murdered Anthony. And then something that didn't happen in the courtroom, but his family let us listen to, because the judge decided not to accept some evidence of, you know, when you have a rental car, they have auto start. And so when you impact, when your car hits something, then it comes on and they start recording. And so they let us listen to the recording. And what happened is Anthony had hit a water, the hydrant in the street. He had hit the hydrant and the auto start came on. And you could hear him say, help, help, help. And then you hear the bullets, boom, boom, boom. You hear the bullets going to his body. You know, and so like this whole thing that he seen a gun or he was threatened, no, how? You walk to the door and you literally heard this dude, like, because the airbag had came out. And you heard him breathe and say, help. And then the bullets come in his body, but the judge said that that was evidence that he wouldn't accept.
One settler, one bullet. One settler,
one bullet.
Settler,
Bullet, bullet.
Settler.
Bullet, bullet. So we also engaged in a protest here in St. Louis at the workhouse. And so we had heard, or we had seen that one of our comrades had seen like the inmates in the jail, like having their t-shirts hanging out. And so we were like, what's going on? So we went over and we heard the inmates saying, we're hot, we don't have no water. You know, now the temperatures at this summer was like in the 100s degrees. And so we like, this is crazy. So we started protesting outside this low security, which I've been wanting them, because I knew that they have the inmate, the police officer, whatever their titles is called, that, yeah, the guards, they have like the inmates fighting each other for food. You know, like they have them, they have these fights amongst them, you know, for food and things like that. And so like this place need to be shut down. It still need to be shut down, but they did, because of the protest and all the attention that was happening. Again, the petty bourgeoisie come in, you know, jump in front of the movement and turned the whole thing, because we were saying shut them down. We weren't saying put no air conditioners in there. We were saying shut them down, and they changed the narrative and put air conditioners in, you know, in the facility. So that was the workhouse. And so St. Louis Uhuru House. So Deputy Chair came to St. Louis, and the Black Power Blueprint began, and EPDM knew, like, okay, we have to be on the grounds and win people to come and participate in the work days and help, you know, do all the different work that we needed to do to participate in it. And we so appreciate Deputy Chair coming, because not only did she come and build the Black Power Blueprint, but she whipped EPDM into a new EPDM. And so we appreciate her. We started having regular meetings in person. We was coming in our meetings with, you know, real agendas that was taking the meetings from one place to another place. And, you know, just her work style is something to be modeled, and we just really appreciate it. It just gave us a blueprint of what we needed to be doing. So I just felt like that was important to talk about. And you know, it's a lot that that happened that I couldn't get into, because I talked a lot about St. Louis. But you know, Akile ran for office, and she was a member of EPDM, and EPDM had regular Sunday rallies for the campaign rallies for the campaign that was very significant and important to do. And I went to St. Petersburg, Florida, and participated in doing outreach and seeing that campaign and listening to it and watching it. And all of us, wherever we were, was watching Akile tear them up. You know, tear them up, like rip them up. I'm like, yes, when is my turn? When can we do that? Naila is waiting. She's foaming at the mouth because she wants to so bad, you know, from watching that. So it was really powerful. So the Keep 28 campaign is a fight for Black power. I'm not going to talk too much about it because Wanda's going to do that. So you can keep going. That's the last one, right? Yeah. Yes, Uhuru. So that's the end of my report, and now Comrade Wanda is going to come with the Keep 28. Uhuru.
Such a pleasure to stand before you today. I have to pull it up on my laptop also. I want to acknowledge our chairman. All right. Omali Yeshatella and his beautiful wife, Ona Zane Yeshatella. I don't know if she remembers, but once I brought somebody to meet her, a friend or somebody that came with me, and I just, her name slipped me, and I felt so embarrassed. I said, never again will that happen. So I went home and I just practiced. I'm like, okay, so it's a different name, but it never happened again. And our international president, Kambai. So here we are with Keep 28. It's a fight for Black power. We can go to the next one. We're going to start with the historical background of the ward issue. If I'm on it, will it make yours slow or? Are you on the internet? Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Let me come off. And most of my information, I've learned, I'm chair of two committees. One is the faith-based and the other is the petition committee, subcommittees. And so I've learned in my professional education, the information that you get, it has to be credible. And so I have a lot of facts because I'm a fact kind of person. I never want to come and give you thoughts of mine, but facts. So most of my information comes from the United States Census, comes from government websites, and in St. Louis demographics and things of that nature. Now, how sometimes people can manipulate information, but this is some of the most reputable sites, okay? Let's go to the next one. Historical background of the ward issue. Now, this is so important to me because we have to know where we are. And it tells about the population by decade in the St. Louis city. And as you see, city and county separated in 1876. And the population then was 350,000. So the people that are for the reduction, they blame it on the population. But as you can see in 1876, it's just a little bit over where we are now at 308,000. So very powerful white interests in the city of St. Louis have attempted to reduce the number of wards 4 times. In 1957, a reduction they wanted to pass it from 28 to 15 seats. It failed. Now, as you can see, and we'll say 1960, where we were. So that was, the population was at 750,000. So I'm just saying that it couldn't be based on population.
Yeah. Yes.
That couldn't be the motive as to why they want to do this. In 83, they wanted to take it from 28 to 16, and the population in 1980, because I'm rounding it off to the closest year, was 453. That's still more than that. Yeah. And then in 2004, we can see the population is decreasing. Yeah, that's true, but that's not their motive, because if it was, then they wouldn't have started as early as 1957 to do this. In 2012, the reduction, the bill was passed from 28 to 14 seats is what they wanted, and they did it, and it was through Proposition R. In 1914, by a popular vote, this is when the 28 wards began, in 1914. So from 1914 to now, we've had 28 wards. So that's just my case for that's not true. Let's go to the next one, the whole population issue. And here, this is the breakdown of the racial composition of St. Louis. Now, and the last census was in 2010. The African American population was at 49.2%, and then the white actually is at 42.2%, because they try to pull in the mixed race with the white and Hispanic to make it 43.9, but it's actually 42, and then the Asians and the Native American. After every census, redistricting has to happen. That's just the law, that's just the mandate. Not even just on the city level, but on the state level too. And so that's gonna have to happen, but if it happens in conjunction with reduction of alderman seats, it's easy, and more than likely, gerrymandering is gonna take place. Because the people that will redistrict it's white power. And we can see that they don't have our interests in the forefront. It's not about what we need and what we want. And the districting, I keep messing up that word, it can influence the outcome of elections, because determining which votes are in which districts can alter the district majorities, okay? So, and that's their whole game plan, is to put people strategically where they want them so that they can get the popular vote. Now, this little chart was in 2012, and it comes from the St. Louis newspaper. And the people, the pink at the bottom, these people voted no. And all the way at the top, the people that voted yes are green. Now, as you can see, the pink group is more or less the black or the African community. And you see them at the top, they're kind of all together. Now down here at the bottom, in one of these wards is one pink, but mostly at the top is where we are. So their game plan with this whole redistricting and reduction, because it's working together, is to merge these districts in a way that our vote is not going to matter. And this map really illustrates it plain and simple what their game plan is in this whole reduction. It's not about population, it's about white power. Yeah. Let's go to the next one, please. Keep 28 is the fight for black power, the real story. Let's go on. All right. Now, the war reduction does not reflect the growth or agenda of the African community. I went to the ordinance to look at it, to see how it read, and in this ordinance, when the Bill 31 was first put forth, I saw that it did not address a fair method as to how the wards will be redistricted. It didn't map out in clear language, okay, this is what we're going to do this time and this time. It just says, it alludes to things like, according to the statutes and the law, stuff like that, but it just didn't really plainly say, this is what we're going to do. And each alderperson is going to serve 22,000 residents instead of 11,000. They're serving 11,000 now, but we're the reduction takes place, they're going to serve 22,000 residents. And that's not a really high number, but that's just what this facts. And this is going to hinder our residents' ability to reach their alderman and make it difficult or even impossible for the average potential candidate to afford to run for this office. Because it's going to be costly. It's going to be a bigger area. The campaigning is going to cost much more, and so the average person is not going to be able to even run. And not just run, but win, because they won't be able to get the word out like they would in a smaller area. After redistricting, the alderperson who ceases to reside within the ward to which he or she was elected shall remain in office for the remainder of the term. So what's going to happen is, after they merge these wards, the person who no longer lives in that area, because they're not just merging wards, they're merging territory. So if these people no longer live in that particular ward, then they're going to be out after their term. So it would be easy for people in authority, white power, to make it so that who they want to be the alderperson will be that alderperson. It's a no-brainer. And then you think, well, like me, I'm a Christian, so I want to think the good about people, right? And then I'll say, well, maybe they'll do right. But if you look at past history, past practice, they haven't done right. So it's no way that I could try to think positive on their behalf and say, okay, they'll do right this time. It's too late in the game for them to do right. They're losing. Our population is more than theirs. They have everything to lose from letting us, grow. And so that alderperson won't be alderman anymore, okay? The Keep 28 campaign is a fight for black power. That's our logo, which we love. St. Louis, gateway to the Midwest, gateway to freedom, however you want to say it. But we're building relationships to further the African social movement. And that's what it's all about, the social movement. You can say, okay, well, what if it doesn't get on the ballot? What if we still furthering the African social movement? We're still putting it out there. We're still educating people. Thank you. Now, this is my definition. Keep 28 is an organized struggle to educate, empower, and deploy Africans in the city of St. Louis to take control of their economy, police, school system, and everything that belongs to us. Everything that pertains to us, we want to take control of. It's under the leadership of Chairman Amalia Shatella, our DC and International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement President, Columbi Antoinette. Let's go. Why Keep 28 is important to the African community. Okay, and I'm sorry it's so small, but all 11 sponsors of that initial ordinance were white. One of them is now Mayor Cruzen. 5 of them remain, and as I researched, the ones that left, they have gone on to higher political offices. It's just crazy to me, all this. Current Mayor Cruzen, then alderman of the 28th Ward and sponsor of this bill, stated that the passing of this bill may lead to a merger with St. Louis County. So, now this was in the newspaper. This was what she said initially in 2012. It was just like a little sidebar, Nothing has been mentioned about the budget or economic development when the wards are merged. How is that going to look? Are we going to get more money when these wards come together? The north side city is already impoverished. It's already messed up. The south city is pretty good. They're in pretty good shape. So and I did hear in one place that one of the aldermen said the budget will not change, but I don't know what budget he was alluding to, and I tried to find it again and I couldn't. But if that budget does not change, how is that going to look? Even though the wards will change, the territorial places is going to be the same. It's still going to be poverty-stricken. economic development is still going to be none, and it's still going to be looking the same way. Okay, the reduction is anticipated by those who oppose the bill that the wards with the majority of African people at over 70%, all these wards will suffer most. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11, and those are the wards more than likely with the 11 African aldermen. And we're not saying these aldermen do great, because I'm just not saying that. I'm saying that we need to keep the door open, you know, and if we can keep this door open, then we can educate people, and we can get other people that have integrity and are not sellouts to come in and to take those offices under the 19 points. I keep finna say amen, so if I do, amen. Yeah. All right. Gerrymandering is bound to occur, since the redistricting will be led by those who sponsored this bill. If that's what they wanted then, what's going to change? That's what they want now. The fear is that the African population is increasing steadily in the city, and that Africans will ultimately gain control of the city. And that's what we want. Gentrification will occur, and Africans who were able to barely afford to live in a certain area may find themselves redistricted in an area whose cost of living is even higher, forcing them to seek residence elsewhere. It is just terrible. And I looked at the different rental or housing sites, and the highest cost of living is in the South as opposed to the North. So Keep 28 is a fight against big money and neocolonialism. Big word, huh? War reduction does not reflect, okay, I already said that. Let's go to the next one. Collect 32,000 signatures on the petition drive for a revote in April 2020. So this whole thing is a process. We're connected with another organization with the petitions, and so far we already have 6,000 signatures, and we need 32,000. Nothing is going to be done until after the census, and the census takes place in 2020. So we have until November 2019 to submit our petitions. And then I believe in April, that's when the election is going to take place, 2020. So in petitions, you know they have to be completed exactly like it says. It's no altering. You can't, somebody completed one of mine and they had the printed name or the signed name. That's not going to fly. It has to be exactly right. And they have to live in the city of St. Louis. Whoever signs, they have to be a registered voter. Can you go to the next one? All right, and this is just the bottom of it. It has to be notarized. So whenever you never sign petitions, you make sure that you sign them in front of the notary, and they notarize the signature. They don't notarize what's on the form, if it's correct or not. They're notarizing that signature saying you are the person that signed, okay? Here's a picture of somebody happily signing one of our petitions. Let's go. Wage a massive voter registration campaign. Now, Brandy is over the voter registration campaign, and what she does, and I attempted to put some pictures in, but it kept shutting down on me, of Brandy, as she has a team that goes to different places in the city, like the Y, like rec centers, and attempts to get people registered to vote. Now, Brandy was concerned because she was saying, well, we're not getting a lot of people to vote, but she told me what Chairman said. At least we're getting the word out. At least we are educating people about what's going on with this whole 28 reduction thing. So still, we're doing what we need to do, okay? And so this is some of the things that are going on in educating our people. Black Power Sunday Rally, you can go to the next. Here we're doing so much, and if you could just stroll through these pictures, it'd be fine. It's just showing what we're doing here, not this one, you go back, to educate people and to let them know what's going on. And another purpose of the Keep 28 is to win Africans in the colony to be involved in running for office on the 19-point platform of Black is Back. That's which I will be soon. Amen. Amen. All I see this is God is so awesome that he'll put you where you need to be for that season, because I am learning so much. I'm in a process preparation stage, and it's exciting. Another thing, Keep 28 is to educate African people on how to vote and elect candidates based on whether they speak to their interests or not. And that's so important because it's all trickery. Just like on the ballot with the Keep 28, the yes or no, the initial one, it was worded so tricky that you really didn't understand what they were saying. Just like the ordinance that I read for this bill, the wording is just way above my head. And really, it says nothing. It's words, but they don't really say anything. And so, Columbi, Makeda, she's a social media person, and Casey, they are so diligent about getting the word out and letting people know, getting on the news, on the radio and things like that to let people know what's going on. Panel discussion that was held, to let people know what's going on. They went to City Hall when it all first started. Now, these people are awesome because I didn't go to these. I was just coming when all this was starting. But to take the time out of your busy schedule to go and represent shows just how much this means to them. And that's another thing that won me was their passion, their desire to make things right for us. Amen? And here's another event. Just going, just pushing, just doing what needs to be done to get that information out there. You see a picture of the Black Power Blueprint. Go ahead. Parade, Animal Alone Parade. People, when we do this, even when we were standing out front and people see the African flag, do you know how phenomenal and awesome that is? And people pass by, they're like, oh, man, what's going on there with the African flag? Because usually it's like, we don't want it to be too loud, We want to make a little noise, but not a lot. But that flag is making a whole lot of noise, And everybody who passes by, they know what's going on. Even with the Animal Alone Parade, they represented. Another radio show, our president, she represented. She's never afraid. We went to this thing where Senator Claire McCaskill was. I think it was last week before. They said we could speak, the pastor did. I'm also faith-based chair on that committee. So he said, come on, you can speak, and they were like, well, why do you speak? I was nervous as heck. I really didn't want to speak. But we got there, and they said you can't speak. They said she's only going to be here an hour, so you can't speak. And President Columbi, she was just agitated. She was just sitting in her seat. It was like she always wanted to stand up and scream. And she said, well, Wanda, when it's time for question and answer, you talk. And then I pointed. I said, well, they only have 3 slots there. I'm not on there. What are you talking about? And so she was just so upset. She got a purse. She put it on her shoulder. And she said, you mean we can't speak? She was just, and then the pastor saw her, so he said, come on. You got something to say. Oh, my God. She had something to say. She had something to say. She was so excited. Her hands were shaking. She said, I'm shaking. She said, because we're dying. She said, and we need to do something about this. It was just awesome. And I told her, I said, you know what? I need that fire you got. I need that boldness because I can't be complacent. I'm in transition, but sometimes I can't wait to get there. I can't wait. I can't wait for the process. So when I see her and all that going on, it's like, wow. So she really made an impact, and she represented. And when she got through, I had flyers to pass out about our events upcoming. Timber had flyers. Ghazi had flyers that had Burning Spirit, that had Black Power Blueprint. We just went down the line passing out stuff to everybody that was there. And they were like, wow, this is just too awesome. And even some of the pastors asked for petitions to take to their church to complete them so that we can get them back from them. So it was fruitful. So this just a Sunday rally that we sat at, and that's my little boy right there with the red shirt on. Okay, you go to the next one. Sunday rally, my grandson Zion, and I didn't try to pick pictures with my family members on them. I guess I did. Sorry about that, y'all. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, the structure of the committee, roles and responsibilities. So we have on this campaign, it's so structured. That's another thing that attracted me to this movement. And I told them one time is selfless, organized, visionary warriors. That's what I see in the individuals here, because it's not about me or I. You know, I'm going to just put aside everything else as I work on this. And they're visionary. They can see past. They can see the end result, and it's so organized. And they're warriors. They're not afraid to fight. We're not afraid to fight. So Kumba is our phone banking coordinator, and it's just what he does. He follows up. He reaches out to people when they come, and he also works on the research to get information for us about different things to make sure we're on track. And then our outreach coordinator, which is Tiffany. And Tiffany is awesome, and she not only does that, but she is with our security. And I told her the other day when we went to the ball that I feel so safe knowing that you guys are here watching our back. And then we have the membership coordinator, which is Naila, and she is in school, I'm sure, today, but she's a young girl. She makes so much sense with what she says. You know, she breaks it down, and she's plain, and you know, and I used to think, well, why do you always say Uhuru, Uhuru? She said, Uhuru means freedom in Swahili, and we should always have freedom at the front of our minds. And I'm like, you know what, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And she's just an awesome young lady. And then we have Makeda, who's our social media coordinator. Now, Makeda, she also wears a lot of hats. And she, just recently, she hooked us up. She told us, oh, okay, get on the radio stations so we can promote Congress. So we got on the radio stations, and we were able to talk to the people and just keep 28 out there, keep Black Power out there, impede them, and all that we do out on the radio. And we talk to so the main thing to me is sometimes people don't receive us, and sometimes they might give us a little flack. But as long as we're constantly putting it out there, we're doing what we need to do. And so I'm not sure if these are all the positions that we still need. I took off the petition coordinator because I took on that one. But, yeah, these are the roles that were still needed. You can go to the next one. And that's Keep 28. Now, I told you I was faith-based committee, right? And I would be remiss not to end this with the scripture. And it's very fitting for what's going on in this whole process. And it's found in the book of Exodus, chapter 1, verses 9 through 12. And this is the NIV. And it says, "Look," he said to his people, "the Israelites have become far too numerous." And to give a little history, Joseph took his family, his daddy and his brothers, all to Egypt because he had grown in Egypt. He came to be profound, Pharaoh's the first man under the Pharaoh. But Joseph died, his brothers died, the Pharaoh died, so a new Pharaoh came. But in the meantime, the Israelites were so prosperous and they had so much favor that they began to grow. And so now the new Pharaoh, the new people in authority said, "Look, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become more numerous, and if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country." So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. Amen? I see us as those Israelites. They dread us. They are so afraid of us that by whatever means possible, they are trying to take us out, to take us down, to shut us up, and to make sure that we do not come of our own. And it's no reason, you know, except they want the white power. Amen?
Fight back. Fist up. Fight back. Get those pigs
Off our back. Yes. Y'all ain't seen Christians like that, have y'all? Uhuru. So the next report, let's give it up for Wanda one more time. So the next report, and we're going to try to move it, is Conrad Fofeet and Walia with the Economic and Treasury Report. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Conrad, the water's hot and the coffee's ready, okay? You've heard that a lot from me. And my cousin said liberalism will kill you. And I've been told I've been liberal. So I've asked my leadership, my direct leadership, Columbai and Danette, to remind me when I'm liberal. And I want to thank Reverend, Chairman, Chairman O'Malley, and DC owner, and happy birthday. Uhuru. Columbai. I am Fofi Al-Kibalong, and this is Walia Brooke. We are Economic Development and the Treasurer. Economic Development has the responsibility to raise and monitor and balance the resources supporting and maintaining Impedum and all its many events and campaigns with the purpose of bringing political life to the masses. Chairman Omali Yeshatella has stated Impedum will have a building in every place that Uhuru movement is located. This will be a place for the poor working class can come and know there is someone to support them in good and challenging times. Economic Development has been tasked to find the first building to house Impedum headquarters here in St. Louis. And you know what? We're going to do the damn thing. All right. The goal of Economic Development Department is to create a system of resources to support the international president, purchase of our St. Louis Impedum headquarters, support Impedum campaigns and events to bring political life to all Africans wherever they are, to keep sustained membership and donating supporters excited, engaged, build Uzi to its greatest possibilities as one of Impedum's economic resources, and set the organization on a trajectory to show political and economics are one. I think we can skip that one because we're kind of rushing. After the Ferguson St. Louis branch, that's the third one, Impedum was consolidated the Black People's Grand Jury, as you've heard. The purpose of well, we don't have to skip that one either. Let's go to the next one. In 2015, Columbai and Danette was appointed as the Impedum president. This ushered in a new era for Impedum. Under President Columbai leadership, the IEC Office of Treasurer was reconstructed and became the Office of Economic Development. The office was expanded from just keeping an account of impedum finances, but the chair had the task of creating financial institutions to sustain the organization. During this time period, the main source of income was impedum, through membership and sustained funding. 2016 marked a historical moment for the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, as the organization launched their revolutionary line of clothing called Uzi, a thread. We call a thread of freedom. 6. Uzi is a Swahili word that means thread of thread. We call it thread of freedom. As is Impedum's biggest project for economic development to date. To make Uzi what it is today, Impedum has rebranded what fashion should look like in a revolutionary sense. I'll let you talk more about Uzi. I'm going to tell y'all something. Uzi is a thread of freedom. And our designer, Columbai, she makes it happen.
So, Uzi is an instant hit in the African community. Uzi is showcased in fashion shows and at vending events throughout St. Louis area and wherever movement events happen. In addition to membership and sustainable funding, Uzi can make up to 50% of Impedum's monthly income. Economic development is very important to the African liberation movement, as politics and economics are one. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. 2017, 2018 ushered in a new era for the Office of Economic Development. Fofi Akibalan became the Economic Development Coordinator. The OED expanded to include a treasurer. At this time, the bulk of Impedum's resources were for membership and sustainable funding and Uzi sales. There were contradictions keeping track of income and expenses. A system was put in place to track resources by writing receipts, following transactions. We were able to see how much resources we were receiving and determine our expenses in advance. By tracking expenses weekly, we could determine trends in membership and Uzi sales and determine what to do so that we could sustain organizational capacity. Creating this system allowed the president to receive a monthly stipend. We were also able to open a new bank account that fit our organizational needs. Going forward, we will use a fundraising calendar with income-driven goals for each fundraising event using science when raising resources.
For the sake of time, we want to invite you to watch our webinar. On the 28th of October, we will be building resources, be asking members to what is it?
On October 28th, we will be having an event. We are asking, we are recruiting new members into Impedum. We are also asking people whose memberships have lapsed to come back in and renew your membership. And also, if you are already a sustainer, we're asking you to take the pledge to upgrade your membership.
Due to time, we want to say, we're doing the damn thing. And we want you to do it with us. We're getting us a Impedum house right here where we're going to house Uzi, and the community can come and speak with us about whatever is on their mind. Chairman said so, we're going to do it. Uhuru.
Uhuru. In the absence of our membership coordinator, I'm going to be giving the membership presentation. I'm sorry, along with Comrade Maisha.
Yeah. Me too.
MPDM members make it happen. Over the past 5 years since our party's last Congress, MPDM has led the way with many well-known campaigns and initiatives that have since become widely recognized and even household names. MPDM remains steadfast in its aim in bringing the masses of African and oppressed people into political life. Some of these campaigns include Africans Charged Genocide, 3 Drowned Black Girls, and the Keep 28 campaign. And these are just some pictures that showcase some of the campaigns that we've done that President Columbia have already gone over in more detail. Our party's primary mass organization, MPDM, is the primary mass organization under the leadership of the party. It is our main instrument for leading our mass work. As such, MPDM's members are the lifeblood of the organization and make it possible for MPDM to carry out this most important work. This is done through a number of ways, 2 of which are members' actual participation in the day-to-day work of MPDM, in addition to the resources generated by their sustaining dues.
Okay, membership levels. Because we understand how important it is that every African be brought into the political life, we have made MPDM membership available in several levels. These levels have been designed to fit financial ability as well as any colonial contradictions that would seek to prohibit full participation.
Can you go back? I'm sorry. Just to go over the levels.
So we have Marcus Garvey Lifetime, $84 a month for a year. Ella Baker, MPDM membership, $50 per month. The Harriet Tubman level membership, MPDM membership, $31 per month. Malcolm X, MPDM membership, $21 per month. Assata Shakur, $10 per month. Huey P. Newton, $60 per year, and then the George Jackson level membership, which is $5 per year.
George Jackson Political Sponsor Program. One of the most exciting things to happen within the Office of Membership and Recruitment recently was the launch of the MPDM's George Jackson Political Sponsorship Program. In this program, members of MPDM's IEC were paired with a George Jackson member to give political education through the exchange of letters. This program has had a huge impact on both the political prisoners and the IEC members. One George Jackson member in particular was even able to contribute an article to MPDM's monthly newsletter in which he detailed the effects of the recent prison strike in South Carolina. MPDM's monthly newsletter. MPDM was also able to successfully produce and distribute several electronic copies of his first ever monthly newsletter. While this was exciting and groundbreaking, it was not without contradictions.
We must build the Office of Membership and Recruitment. While these initiatives were great ideas and were fruitful in many ways, they were not without contradictions. One contradiction that repeatedly rears its head is the need to build MPDM in order to fill its office to capacity. This will allow for these types of programs to continue without interruption. The party must build MPDM. This is why, as the chairman stated in his most recent political report to this Congress, party cadres must also be the most dedicated members of our mass organizations, to the extent that much of the party's work will occur from within the ranks of these formations. Party members within the mass organizations will ensure their stability and guarantee that they have real capability beyond what the new recruits will be able to contribute without further testing and development.
The 2016 plenary political report was clear. Every member of the party must join MPDM. And even if our primary work prohibits us from the fullest participation, our membership dues and participation in local meetings will give the organization greater capacity on many levels. MPDM, understanding itself to be an organization of the party, must must be the most zealous distributor of the party's press, especially the burning spear, for which it must supply articles that will facilitate its organizing efforts. Our party leaders must also be cognizant of the role of Impedum as a major producer of a deep pool of potential party recruits, a reserve force for the revolution, where Africans learn organization and how to be organized. Impedum must become the method with which we actually contend with non-proletarian forces for political, ideological, and territorial influence and power. Impedum wants you. Impedum wants you within its ranks. Start your annual or sustaining membership today. Visit impedum.org and be a part of the resistance. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. The pigs in my hood. Ain't no good. The pigs in your hood. Ain't no good. Uhuru. My name is Ushindi Watu, and I'm the International Outreach Coordinator for the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And I'm going to speak to outreach and winning the masses. So outreach is very important. I mean, it's really badass campaigns that happened in the past. Like, I had a chance to work on the 3DBG coming in on the tail end of it. And to build that type of organization took a strong outreach campaign. And I just want to speak to that. So the heart of MPDOM's outreach, you know, outreach is the heart. The propaganda leads the masses of the people, and outreach is how we get the propaganda to the people. Uhuru. All right. So MPDOM thrives by gaining its contacts. So when you do the outreach, like MPDOM, the contacts are very important. Because those contacts, that's our future, that's our leadership. Ain't that right, Prez? You know, when you call the contacts and do the follow-up, that's our sustainers, that's our leadership, that's our members. So it's real important to, you know, follow through the whole outreach plan. Next slide. So I got this from, it says, now the masses upon whom our security and revolutionary success depends on, success depend, need to be able to find us. And that comes from the chairman's report speaking to the building plan. And they need to be able to find us, but we have to be accessible to be found. And that's how, you know, the building plan is so important, but that's also how outreach is so important, because, you know, we have to be out there. We have to go outside. We got to do the outreach. So it's real important to do that. So the outreach process, and we're going to do something a little different, because one of the contradictions with the outreach process with MPDOM is like a very stiff and mechanical way of my approach to it. You know what I mean? So we want to do a little something different. I have what I want to call the ready to kick colonial ass players, my actors, you know what I mean? And we're going to do like an improvisation of how the outreach process flows. So can I get my players, Makeda? And I'm going to set up the scene a little bit, because we don't have too many props or anything like that. But it's a table outreach going on. Only 2 people showed up to do the outreach. And we're going to follow the contact from beginning to end. Because, all right, Uhuru. All right.
Anything, you know, if you have any questions or anybody has any questions about anything, just send them over to the table and I'll help them, you know, You know, you got a Vanguard up. We got to get 50 contacts on this take. So, all right, Uhuru.
If you go over
over. Well, yes, I can help with that. We're having an event on Sunday that will explain everything. Could you please sign my contact sheet and give us your contact information, and somebody will contact and call you to remind you. Our newspaper, The Burning Spear, is the oldest black revolutionary newspaper that's been in production for 40 years. It'll tell you about who we are, and it only costs $1. You want to buy one?
I just so happen to have $1. I think I can go and donate that to Black Power.
All right. All right, there you go.
All right, I'll check it out. I look forward to hearing from y'all.
All right.
Uhuru. All right. So some of the most important things is, you know, selling the Burning Spear newspaper, making sure that you have the flyers, the contact sheet, the clipboards, and the pens. There are different kind of outreach to do. There's drops. That was an example of a table outreach, and also doing flyering and handing out flyers to the people. Next slide. Also, most important, and I had another skit to follow this whole process, but for the sake of time, we're not going to do it. But you got to call the people. You got to call the people. It's important when you do get that contact to have all the information so the people could be called. And that's how we win the people to our organization, Uhuru. One more thing I want to speak to, like, this is not coming off the top of anybody's head. There are manuals that leads this process that speaks to every form of outreach that there is, and also a branch building manual, because branch building is under the leadership of outreach, that builds this organization. So, you know, it's not just doing anything, you know, in an unorganized way. We're organized and we have a process. Uhuru. All right? All right. And get involved. Join the MPDOM. Participate in the renewal campaign, renew your memberships, join the outreach committee, build a local branch in your area, and also one more thing, join one of these IEC committees, because this is a badass IEC. We get it done, so join.
Israel too? Africa. I always want to do that. Uhuru comrades, everybody. My name is Dexter Mlawingu. I am Mlawingu. I am the international coordinator for the Office of Information and Education. This, as President Kalambai said, this is a newly consolidated office. You know, as beginning of this year. And I'm just going to speak a little to what we've been doing this past year. But before I get into any of that, I want to express my deepest appreciation for Chairman Mali Chatella. Thank you. Just for your visionary leadership and just for assembling this Congress and this your undying commitment, Chairman. So I salute you for that, Uhuru. I also want to salute my president, Kalambai Internet, for powerfully leading the PDOM, as well as my IEC. All right, so International Info Subcommittee, that consists of myself, Dexter Mlawingu again. I also serve as a photographer. We have Jasan Kine. He was just in the last skit. Oh, there you go, over there. He serves as secretary as well as social media coordinator. On my social media team, I have Feist, as well as Osman Jalani, and Maisha. She serves as a propagandist, and she doubles as, actually, she triples as, Keep 28 work, as well as the St. Louis president of MPDOM. All right, so, waging the war of ideas. I remember as a kid, I used to play as James Bond games. If anybody knows 007, GoldenEye, he used to play those in the 90s, my little brother. And I remember there were, just random memory, there were like certain scenes, certain levels of the game we'll be playing, and like, you know, like say the big bad guy, the boss of the level, he, in his like main office, they'd be like a little tiny image of Che Guevara on it, or Fidel Castro, small subtleties like that. And I remember even years after that, before I came to this movement, before I had any kind of political interest at all, I just had this notion, this unexplained notion in my head that these people like Fidel and Che were bad guys. I couldn't explain where the idea came from, but it was one day I was like, it was that small little thing, and having Che Guevara on the wall, and you internalize that, and that's just as far as speaking to the war of ideas, it just speaks to how our being colonized also manifests itself on a psychological level, and oftentimes we're not even conscious of it. But what Impedum and Fournette is charged with is consciously overturning that psychological aspect of our being colonized. Uhuru. So, developing trainings. This is a quote from the Impedum Branch Building and Outreach Manual. Develop and implement programs to educate the Impedum membership and general African population. This is something that the InfoNet committee has been taking on. We have developed trainings for social media, different software. We're currently working on developing trainings regarding burning spear outreach, regarding writing for our spear, and just taking on that charge of ensuring that the African population is educated, information education. Next slide, please. That slide, okay. Better. All right. So this example here, this is actually some of our social media work. Again, waging the war of ideas. Waging the war of ideas, we have to go where the people are. Chairman said himself, and Peter must go where the people are on the ground. We also have to go where the people are online. And this manifests itself here with us capitalizing on these memes. These memes are hot for a week, 2 weeks at a time. It's very transient. And we make sure that while they're hot, we capitalize them, we politicize them. We go where the masses are online. So we took Cardi B, and we invented Cadre B. My mama said all white people owe reparations. And Mark Parker here, he's the CEO of Nike. And so again, just controlling the narrative and waging the war of ideas. When Nike decides to endorse Colin Kaepernick, coincidentally, just in time for back-to-school shopping season, we in Impedum, we see through that, and it's our job to make sure the masses of African people see through that as well. So we took this meme, we flipped it a bit, we corrected it. Here's Mark Parker, something he might say. I don't give a damn about black people, but when I pretend I do, I make sure it's just in time for back-to-school shopping. Just do it, niggas. Okay, building our website. All right, so we in InfoNet, we've done work with the social media, but we understand that Facebook, it's not our apparatus, it's the state. I'm sure everybody in the movement has experienced many instances where the state intervenes and compromises some of our online work, our social media work. So we're really making a concerted effort to direct all online traffic to our own page, right? Impedum.org. We really have been working to upgrade and modernize that website. So make website means getting resources. The one thing we're going to do, just to speak to what the Office of Economic Development went over, we're going to make sure that Uzi products are available for purchase on our website. Just basic means of economic development. I mean, we need to have that available on our website. And again, we also want to make the website a means of rendering services to the masses, information of education. Again, we're talking about trainings to the masses of African people at very affordable prices, It'd be a means of economic development for Impedum, as well as gaining membership. Next slide, please. Okay, here's an example of just some propaganda that has come out of Info and Ed office. The Keep 28 campaign logo, if anybody's familiar with that. I hope you are, the presentation just happened. And here's some more. One contradiction regarding our output of outreach material is that we haven't done it on a consistent basis, and it's a deep contradiction for information education to not be producing a consistent stream of propaganda. It's been on a very sporadic basis, or on a upon request basis, which is again a deep contradiction that Info and Ed is committed to overturning. Next slide, please. Okay. So here, mentioned in the political report, the chair mentions the necessity of having posters in our MPDM offices that that speak to the struggle, that demonstrate our unity with the people, and these are examples of images of Africans taken by members of Info and Ed, and attached to it we have quotes from my own president, Kalambai and Danette. I'll read one right here on the right side. For me, the only conclusion was to organize and join MPDM so that if I die before we're free, my kids will have the blueprint for what they need to do to gain their liberation. Uhuru. And this is just the kind of just upliftment of our leadership that we really want to begin a culture of in Info and Ed. We're committed to that as well. And those posting, real quick. These posters will be available for purchase later on today as well. Y'all want to get you one. Next. All right, goals for 2019. Complete renovation of website, kind of like I spoke to earlier. We want to make sure that Uzi and just other products that we offer in MPDM are available to the masses, easily accessible on our website. We want to do that. We also want to make sure that trainings are available to be purchased from our website as well. Again, just the continuing development and implementation of trainings on a consistent basis according to a scheme and POA, again, not a sporadic basis that has been in the past. Consolidate a monthly Burning Spirit column. That that should be on the top. Should be on the top of the list for MPDM. I know it was mentioned the 2016 plenary report, the necessity of MPDM maintaining a monthly column in the Spear, and that is a charge that the Office of Info and Ed is willing to take on. Why I Say Uhuru project. The Why I Say Uhuru project. Actually, I'll get right back to that. Reinstituting the African Resistance Now political education series. Now this series was significant to me because it was active before I joined, before I came to the movement, but it's one of the, I was exposed to the movement through African Resistance Now videos, so it was very significant to me. It was one of the early ways I was exposed to the movement, I was exposed to the politics, and just one of the things that inspired me to want to get involved with this movement. I said, okay, well, so on a consistent basis, they have these political education sessions for the people. It really engaged me. It really engaged me, and it's definitely something that Info and Ed should uphold and should continue. So that is also another commitment that Info and Ed is making. Building the Info and Ed subcommittee is definitely something we need right now. As you saw earlier, right now it is myself, it is Jason, it is Maisha, and Faisal Osman, and we have more than a few positions that need to be filled. Next, please. Why I Say Uhuru. Okay, so. Huh? Whatever's fine, don't worry about it. Oh, okay, all right, go ahead. Anyway, so Why I Say Uhuru is a project. What inspired the project was, it's years ago, before I was in the movement, before I had any kind of political interest at all, I remember I used to just be casually scrolling through, old photos, and I used to stumble upon these photos of the Black Panther Party. And, I didn't know anything about anything, man. I didn't know what communism was. I couldn't tell you what a Huey Newton was. But I didn't know anything about anything, but I knew if nothing else, them Panthers meant business. Whatever it was, they meant it. So it inspired this because I believe that our party and our movement on PDUM should be upheld in the same way, and I wanted to capture images of members of PDUM, just just kind of lush photography that would that really just speaks to the passion that our movement has for the work that we do. We can go to the next slide, please. And that example was Northeast Regional Rep, none of y'all in the corner, Uhuru. So these are just more examples of the kind of photography that will be included in this book. King Gozi, we have Dr. Akile, and we have Chiwaniso of the IAC. Sorry? And Asani, I can't forget Comrade Asani. But, okay, hold it right there 1 second. Okay, so this is an example of one of the images I used to always see, when I was younger, and I don't know what they're about, but I said, look at their faces. They meant it. They're serious. They ain't playing, whatever it is. So if we go to the next slide, that is the same. That is what I'm trying to capture with our movement. These brothers ain't playing, and these sisters ain't playing. And our movement is most certainly not playing. And attached to it, if you can hold it for a second. And attached to these images, though, another thing that inspired me, I know I'm short on time, sorry. Another thing that really, inspired me was the fact that, just kind of revisiting the Panthers, these people weren't all as militant as they looked. They weren't all military. They weren't all professionally military trained. These are regular people. These are regular people who understood what needed to be done for their liberation and then rose to the occasion. They rose to the occasion. Uhuru. Right. So what that kind of brought me to is that attached to these photos, there'll be a series of stories or testimonies, just stories of these members of PDUM and their paths to our movement. We all came from very different walks of life, politically, personally, economically even. And what this is trying to do is to really highlight our personal stories on a subjective level to appeal to the masses outside of our movement. What the masses are going to do when they see this, it's going to make us, to quote our President Kalambai, it humanizes us. It makes us relatable, and it inspires this empathy that the masses are going to have to our movement. They're going to see our stories, and they're going to see their own stories. They're gonna see. So as they read our stories, they're gonna see themselves in PDUM, and then as a result, they're gonna see the potential for PDUM membership in themselves. Uhuru.
Uhuru. So we out of time, but we just want to again really appreciate Chairman Amali Yeshatella. I just really appreciate you for entrusting PDUM for these last 5 years in my hands, and we are going to continue to take this political report and fight for it, and build these offices everywhere we are, because we understand that what we have to do is bring the masses into political life. Uhuru, touch one, touch one, Uhuru.
Uhuru. You said you only had time for one question? Oh, so you didn't have time for questions, okay. I just wanted to express my appreciation for this report and for the leadership that we're getting from Comrade Kalambai. It is greater than most people understand. Columbai, when we talk about her being straight from the working class, in some ways it's an understatement. But she is a brilliant organizer. Yes, she is. And she connects with the masses and with the people better than anybody. And you saw her walk from downstairs at an NPDM convention, go run upstairs, go to a funeral, take over the damn funeral, win the mourners to the revolution, and Columbai, under her leadership, has begun the process of building the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement that we've been fighting for years, for years. This is what we mean by organization. It's building an organization. And in the process of doing that, Columbai gets built by the organization. She doesn't start out building Columbai, which means that there will never be an organization. She starts out building the organization, and in that process, Columbai gets built. And everybody loves and say, this is Columbai. She represents the masses of the people. And Comrade Wanda, I always hear her say, you know, her love for this comrade, for what the passion and truth that she brings to this process. And you can't do better than that. And I just want to express appreciation for the report and for the amazing leadership and all of the kind of hurdles that Comrade Columbai has to overcome. Columbai struggles with literacy. I ain't supposed to be saying that. But she does. But she is brilliant. She is brilliant. She is brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. We know. Yeah. We know, and we've had people in this movement who can write brilliant dissertations and what have you, and read volumes and talk more stuff than the radio. But Columbai, this is the real McCoy right here. This is the real deal. This is the real deal. This is the real deal. And yeah. This is our president. Even if she has to have a cadre of forces that reads every damn thing that she needs read. Even if she has to have a cadre that writes it, nobody can do what this comrade has done and what she's done. Uhuru.
Wow, man, what can you say after that? Yeah, so if you're not a member, you know what to do. You need to get up there and join this organization. It's very powerful. I started in Impedum, and it's actually where you start at, where you begin at. Yeah, amazing. So at this time, I want to bring up Cam Howard. Uhuru. Cam, yes. He's going to give a presentation on reparations.
Uhuru, comrades. Wow. I just got here in St. Louis about an hour or so ago, and I came into a powerful forum. Very powerful forum, and let's give it up again for the work of Impedum under the leadership. I had the amazing opportunity of meeting Sister President Columbaye when she was green. She ain't green no more. Such a fabulous transformation. I want to talk briefly about reparations. I would have been here earlier to the Congress, but about a year ago, early last year, I was asked to present on a reparations panel at the 50th Conference of the National Conference of Black Lawyers, which was held this weekend. And so it was a pleasure to be invited to be there. And I would have been here if I had got the invitation earlier. Then I got that invitation. I'd have been here for the entire Congress. But I was there because the National Conference of Black Lawyers was a group of lawyers who came together in 1968 who determined that they would be the legal arm of the revolution. And they represented the Panthers, they represented the RNA 11, they represented the New York 21, and other revolutionary contingents in the Black Power movement. And so I wanted to present to them on this panel because I thought I could offer them something that they were missing. They asked me to speak on the interrelationship of the reparations movement on the continent of Africa, the international reparations movement, and the reparations movement in America. And I began by asking them at the program well, the title of my presentation was Locked and Loaded with the Language and Mission of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. And that my argument was that people of African descent all over the globe, we were locked and loaded with this particular language that came out of the World Conference Against Racism in 2001. And we were doing some magnificent things around the planet. And I asked at that conference of revolutionary black lawyers who had heard of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. And about 60 lawyers within a room, revolutionary, radical black lawyers, and only 4 raised their hand. So this is a testament of the lack of awareness that we are on some of the most powerful tools that we have available to us for freedom. And I began talking about how the language of the Durban Declaration Program of Action, and I've been telling this to this particular audience for a long time, is one that has stated that the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, apartheid, enslavement were crimes against humanity. Under international norms, crimes against humanity have no statute of limitations. They are the most egregious crimes that a state can commit against its civilian population, and that reparations are automatically due. And I talked about how in Brazil, in 2001, they came out of that up into 2008 at the review conference in Durban, the review conference that was held in 2008, where they reported on what they had did with the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. And they went back home and they created this Secretariat of Race. They created economic development opportunities for the Quilombos. Quilombos were those Africans who fled enslavement and created their own independent reality in the hills, in the forests, and lived there for years on land that they claimed to be theirs as a result of being brought to this particular space in Brazil. And so many of these groups, and there were hundreds of them, many of these groups had been on this land for years, and then after enslavement, the government and wealthy landowners took this land from them. So part of the process in Brazil was to return this land back to the Quilombos. They also created affirmative action programs, higher education, free education all the way up to the postgraduate level. And they did some other things that lifted 23 million people out of enslavement, out of poverty, I should say, 23 million people out of poverty in a space of 8 years. Now here in America, 11 million people of African descent are said to live below the poverty level, 11 million. So in 7 years with these reforms utilizing the language and the mission of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, they lifted twice as many people out of poverty that exists among African people here in the state. So that's powerful. 21 million people, 20+ million people in Brazil affected by this. After the Lula da Silva government that was in place in 2001, which is the Workers' Party government, was in place in Brazil, after they were defeated, there became challenges on what these reforms had did. So they challenged this land redistribution. And just recently, in January of this year, one of those land cases was settled in the Brazilian Supreme Court, the highest court in the land in Brazil, and it awarded one Colombo 200 hectares of land. Now, 200 hectares of land is the size of Los Angeles and New York combined. It's the size of 3 Chicagos. And we're talking about less than 5,000 people were awarded this land. As a result of the Durban Declaration and Program, this language and mission that came out of 2001. In Zimbabwe, we know that the Economic Indigenization Act that took the land from the white farmers and took the mines from the foreign corporations and put that in the hands of the people was part of this language and mission that came out of Durban. That the reason these white farmers had this land was because of colonialism, and colonialism was a crime, was a criminal act. And it was up to the army, the state who controlled the army, to get that land. Mugabe said, they took it from you, you take it back. That's what he told the army. They took it from you, take it back. You want your land back. And so that's what the army did. They took the land back. But they did it because they had this language, this international language that they could stand on, that these were crimes against humanity. In Azania right now, the Economic Freedom Fighters, which is a party that grew up out of the youth party of the ANC. But now they're not even connected with that same ideological focus of the ANC. They have championed the position, land without compensation. And they forced the petty bourgeoisie ANC government to also say land without compensation. And so they are basing this because, again, those were crimes. These white settlers in Azania who live have 80% control of land, took that land through the crimes against African humanity called colonialism, called the colonial struggle. And so they're saying there's no need to compensate these people for a theft of our land. And so we see that here in America right now in Houston, Texas. There was a recent article about an uncovering of a mass grave on the Sugarland Penitentiary site in Sugarland, Texas. This grave was, these bodies that were exhumed were of Africans who had been worked to death in the convict leasing system at the Imperial Sugar Company. And Imperial Sugar Company was the largest producer of sugar in America. And they leased Africans from the penitentiary. That's what was called convict leasing. And they worked them to death. And they uncovered these graves when this new company was attempting to expand their corporation. And the National Black United Front, a revolutionary radical contingent within our movement that is rebuilding, like most of our coalitions and organizations that began in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, and some even in the 60s. We're all in the rebuilding phase. But they took upon this issue and are engaged in a reparation enforcement type of program against the state of Houston, and in particular, the Sugarland Penitentiary. And they have a list of 7 demands, and part of those demands is reparations. But they're basing those demands on convict leasing, which is a form of apartheid or crimes against humanity. And therefore, we have a legitimate legal mechanism to make this demand for reparations. And we should be doing these type of actions all over the country. Organizations like Impedum, and I'm appealing to Impedum, this tremendous organized effort of a thrust for black power that we saw displayed here. I'm suggesting that impede them wherever you're at, whether you're in St. Louis or wherever you're at, whether you can build a structure to go up against any of these institutions, corporations, levels of government, or even families that have engaged in the crimes against African people. We have the mechanism, the international mechanism from which we can call all of these actors criminals and begin a campaign to demand reparations. In Chicago, we went up against, this is not something I'm saying that in the abstract, we went up against Norfolk Southern Railroad. Norfolk Southern Railroad announced about, undercoverly, they set about expanding their rail yard, which now exists, which initially exists from 40, was about a half a mile square rail yard. They were operating about 12,000 trucks a day coming in and out of their rail yard. And it was in the heart of the black community. About 6 years ago, they began quietly buying up houses in this area and tearing them down. And it was making it seem like the area was becoming blighted. But this was a plan to devalue the land in this area and then later buy up all the homes that they could buy if they didn't force people to leave, because the values of the land was being devalued, and the look of their community was one of solidly working class, where people were going to work every day, that now you see just people who couldn't afford to leave that were still there. And so they needed to purchase the last 103 lots that they hadn't purchased that the city owned. And because there was previous engagement with the city council around reparations, particularly a slavery disclosure ordinance, any corporation that wanted to do business with the city had to report whether or not they had any ties to the enslavement of our ancestors. It's called a slavery disclosure ordinance. And so they reported that they had leased Africans from various owners, and they named the so-called owners in this report. We got hold of that report, and we did an action against them, demanding 6% of the project costs be put into a fund. It was a $286 million project. It would have netted this fund $17 million, which we were going to leverage up to about $60 million in development. And there were several other corporate organizations that were actually also engaged. They brought us in late into the process. We found out about 3 days before they were supposed to go to City Hall and vote whether or not to sell in this land. And we made an intervention around crimes that they had committed against our ancestors. For 35 years during a period of enslavement, and another 65 years, almost 100 years of criminal activity involved in our ancestors during the convict leasing system and enslavement. And that reparations was due to us as a result of those crimes. And we were able to get a 30-day delay from that vote. And during that 30 days, this corporation was supposed to meet with all the organizations who were opposing this sale and work out something. We introduced the whole idea of this historical narrative. The first person in the city council who opposed the sale right then spoke to this historical narrative that we presented. Then the other councilmen got involved. When it came time for that corporation to meet with us, those organizations locked and Cobra out of the meeting. And we were the ones who got them to a state of having a meeting. For 1.5 years, they had been working and had been being pushed in the face by this corporation, by this railroad. They weren't even speaking to them, they were just ignoring them. When we got them to get to the point where it was a meeting, they locked us out of the meeting. The railroad then capitulated to all of their demands. The city hall reporter says environmental groups forced a string of demands, but it wasn't environmental groups. It was in Cobra raising the issue that they were criminals and this was a criminal act. And before you engage with the sale of this land to these criminals must work out something with the African population in this community. So that was a victory of sorts because some of the demands that they wanted were around better diesel emission equipment. because there were studies that showed that this particular area had the highest level of respiratory diseases in the city. Not only was it connected to the rail yard where all these trucks were coming in, and they were, like I said, they were operating about 12,000 trucks a day. With the expansion, they would be operating 2,500 trucks a day, or 25,000 trucks a day, I should say. Tremendous amount of activity. About 6 trucks per minute are going in and out of this rail yard. Tremendous activity. And so it was sort of a victory that we got these other things, that they had to deal with these other things, but being locked out of this conversation did not get us the victory we wanted. And so one of the things we found out as we really assessed why we didn't get the victory we wanted was we understood that we were not able to put up the type of community support that would have made it impossible for them to lock us out of the meeting. And that's what I see here with Impedum, that you are gaining the support of the masses so that the masses will have your back whenever you engage in any type of action. And so I'm appealing to you. There are criminals in every city in this country, every county in this country, every state in this country. We also went up against the governor, not the governor, but the state legislator in the capital of Illinois. There was a state legislator who introduced a resolution calling on Obama to issue an executive order calling for a slavery commission. And so the state of Illinois, the legislator wanted the whole state body to agree to this resolution. And so we went down and to the state legislator, to the Capitol, and we gave testimony. And one of the things we said was that every state legislator in the state of Illinois has an obligation to sign this resolution because the first 2 governors of this state were slaveholders. You think because it's in the North, it didn't have nothing to do with slavery. The very first 2 governors of the state were slaveholders. And so you've inherited this body. That's one thing about crimes against humanity, they have no statute of limitation. So this state of Illinois had a constitution in 18, whatever it was, that constitution still is the governing document of that state, so it's still a criminal. And it's the same way with every corporation in this country. They are persons. They don't have a death until there's a resolution that says we did. And so if a corporation was in existence 200 years ago and its existence today is criminal today, search out where you're at, Impedum members, in this city, in St. Louis. St. Louis, the railroad that crosses the Mississippi River, that goes from St. Louis, from Missouri to Illinois, is the wealthiest stretch of land in America. Whoa. That railroad, it connects all of the rail traffic in the Midwest. You say this is the gateway to the Midwest? That rail comes through that particular that track, comes into Chicago, and you see those 25,000 trucks a day moving that freight around the country. We have opportunities. There should be reparations actions going on everywhere at the same time in this country. And I'm appealing again to this great body, this organized body under the leadership of Chairman Marsha Teller, the Deputy Chair and President Colombayi with Impedum, to join this struggle and take the lead. All of us have a right and obligation to our ancestors to enforce our human right to be repaired. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Africans charged genocide. So appreciate that presentation, Cam. Okay, at this time, we're not gonna have any discussion, but what we're gonna do, we're gonna get ready to break for lunch. So that's it. Yeah. Ready to break for lunch, y'all? Are y'all hungry? Well, we have. Okay, it's been changed. Okay, so at this time, we're gonna have a discussion. 10 minutes. Cam, you come up here.
Before we start, everybody know about the Laquan McDonald verdict in Chicago with this cop. You know, there's some talk among some of the young people that they wish the verdict would have been otherwise, so we could have tore it up. There was a sister, I was at a presentation yesterday, there was a sister who works in security.
The case of the young brother who was shot by the cops in Chicago. It was video, what have you, and shot him 16 times as he was on the ground. And there was just a verdict, that he was convicted, which I really thought might not happen, you know, and he was just convicted. I think it was second-degree murder.
Second-degree murder and 16 counts of aggravated assault, 1 for each shot fired.
Yeah.
But there was a sister, I was at a gathering yesterday, and there was a young sister who works in security at a office building in the downtown area of Chicago. And she said that she got 32 emails in the course of the 3 days leading up to the verdict. And she usually gets 1 or 2 emails. But she got 32 emails, and it all dealt with this immense fear that white folks have of what was going to take place after, if there was the wrong verdict. And she said she got an opportunity to see what it felt like when the Haitian Revolution was going on, to see what their reaction was. But other than that, she said how they had sent photos to the security to be on the lookout for individuals, and they got all this information from their Facebook accounts. And so the security apparatus in the whole downtown area had photos of people who they thought were going to appear and do some damage. And they also said that the young people were being influenced by the older people. It wasn't that they really knew what to do, but they wanted to do something. It was some of the older heads who were actually going to direct them. So this is the type of intel we're getting, and we have to, utilize it for the, purposes of our struggle. If there's any comments or questions.
I just want to appreciate that report. And I don't know exactly how this process works within the Congress, but I would hope that whomever has responsibility, if it is possible, to sit down with Brother Cam and put together a resolution that unites with what it is that he's calling for. I think that would be really important if we could do that. Yeah, Uhuru.
Also want to say at our action against Norfolk Southern Railroad, Brother Timber and Brother Will, I didn't want to say Will, but Kabula were also at that action. And we kind of shut down the expressway and got no media coverage. This was about a week or so after the Mike Brown incident. And so they didn't want a Mike Brown incident in Chicago, so they sent one police car, did a quick drive-by, and let us do our thing. Right. So it was, kind of crazy. Well,
is there anything else?
Definitely thank you.
Demand for reparations. So you go to these corporations, you make these demands. Is it like a negotiation process? I'm sure that a lot of times it's not just like monetary reparations, but it's like, okay, you got to do this. You got to make this commitment. So that negotiation process, what are we giving? So are we saying, I don't know. To me, I guess, like what the chairman said, just sit down and I guess to think about like what are we, because it would be negotiation. What are we willing to give up? So can you you talked about the railroad one, but can you tell of I guess an instance where negotiations did go through and what did we get from it and what did we have to give to get it?
All right. So the process we call reparation enforcement begins with any entity, organization, coalition identifying a injuring party, a corporation, institution, particular aspect of the government, and presenting them with a statement of the crimes that they committed and detailing it in the nature of a criminal indictment, that under international law, these are crimes, and that this is what we want as a result of those crimes that will take you off that criminal roll. The goal is to damage or to impact their brand. If you can't impact their brand, there's not going to be any success. A corporate brand has more value than some of its money because it affects their stock value. In the Norfolk Southern Railroad case, after we weren't able to successfully, because it takes, some of these actions are going to take a while, and they're going to happen overnight. And that was one of the things we also learned is that if you don't have the structure for a long-term process of direct action, you're not going to win. So you had to build that structure. In that particular Norfolk Southern case, we found that we could have been the brand. We could have been successful in attacking their brand because we know that the whole convict listing system was built entirely almost on the railroad to further the building of the railroad. So we were attaching the entire railroad industry to enslavement. Their stock, after they successfully bought the land from the city, before they even began to build, their stock went from $77 a share to $114 a share. We could have interfered with that. They made $2 billion in the course of 2 weeks, from $9 billion to $11 billion corporation. And so the process is presenting them with a presentment and then doing some type of direct action campaign to damage their brand, which will lower their stock value. Once their stock value, we don't have to divest from their corporations, or we don't have to boycott or not buy from their corporations. We damage their brand, which lowers their stock value. They will come to the negotiating table.
Uhuru, I'm a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and I know that part of our long-term goals is not winning reparations just from white people, but from corporations, banks, educational institutions. So I'm wondering if USM or the African People's Solidarity Committee would play a role in this resolution. Uhuru.
Cam can't answer that question.
Uhuru.
Uhuru,
we
I
also
want
have
to thank
people watching online. So somebody asked you a question.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is from Danny on YouTube. He says, do you see an opportunity to collaborate on joint lawsuits with other colonized peoples?
Lawsuits are very difficult unless you have lawyers who understand international human rights law. And that was the challenge we have with lawyers in this country, even though amongst the radical lawyers, is that since 2005, there's not been any legal challenge in this country around reparations. Is because of the 2005 ruling by the judge saying that we did not have standing to bring a lawsuit, meaning that we were too far removed and that the statute of limitations had ran out. Again, when we utilize international norms, which this government is a signed party to, there are no statute of limitations, and the injury continues. So how are we not removed and we're still injured? Yeah. And so, but because these particular cadre of lawyers do not understand or have not taken the opportunity to learn how that works out in American courts, there is no legal challenge. So I don't have much faith in lawsuits unless we can bring those other colonized people can share the lead in what they're doing utilizing this particular strategy. Thank you. Uhuru, thank you for the opportunity. Reparations now.
Reparations now.
Uhuru, this is a little off program, but I did want to acknowledge we are live streaming right now, and Comrade Tafari gave some comments, so I just wanted to make sure that we, Tafari is the chair of the African People's Socialist Party in occupied Azania, South Africa. So Uhuru, Tafari, Uhuru comrades, so he said the Uhuru comrades, the Southern Africa Front is checking in. Let's continue to build to win. All power to the people. Izwele to Africa. He also sends a revolutionary happy birthday to our chairman and deputy chairwoman. Long live Uhuru!
Okay, Uhuru. Yeah, so let's give it up for Cam Howard in his presentation again. Thank you so much. Okay, at this time, I guess we can, it's good, we have the okay to break for lunch now? Maybe? Yeah. Okay, I think we do, yes.
Does everybody have their tickets?
Oh yeah, so, yeah, it was a, did everybody, when you checked in for registration, did you get your tickets? When you came in, if you didn't, you have to check with registration to get your tickets before you go to lunch. We got the okay for lunch. We got the thumbs up. All right, Uhuru, it's like it's lunchtime. Okay, we should be back within an hour.